Yo, what is up, Chocobo Force? So, new map review about missile users in particular, and quite honestly, why I think Black Rosalina is not viable here. To the extent that we're getting, like, stumped and beaten. She's not bad. She's vastly nerfed from the danger that she used to be, and here's why. So, really critical thing to understand, and a lot of you using Frederica, so I'm going to use Fred for the majority of these examples because it's super topical. Really important to understand the range across the valley there, and she does have range of 2 addition or range of 1. I do think range of 2 is better, quite honestly. This ability is better in general, but you can pick, and it actually does matter. There's some differences here. And one thing we really need to understand about the types of fire is the range and the height that it can hit. So something like Vital Sharpshoot, I'm going to reference a couple times here. If you count like the range at base, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. If you increase the passive with 2, that means she can hit something up to 7 squares away. Remember that number, 7. Same thing with arm shots, basically the same range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, upwards of 7. Same thing with piercing shot. Same thing with leg shot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, upwards of 7. That's really important to know because if you're looking at the map and trying to gauge the distance across, if you have Fred stand anywhere on this side of the ledge, and she will move that way almost always, like turn 1, the distance of the gap across the valley, let's assume that Fred is like standing here, 1, 2, 3 on our first turn, right? The distance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. She could literally hit up to 7 spots away. And I will say on this map, this back line, I've never seen anyone walk there. Ever. It exists. I've never seen it happen. So, Black Rosalena, obviously it depends on where she's being slotted because, I've seen her a lot here. To be fair, if she's in this slot 3, it changes everything, and I'll get to that soon. But if we're assuming slot 1 or slot 2, the same logic always applies. She is within 7 spots of almost all the missile users because the straight up rangers have upwards longbow trajectory of 2. The reason why I say that that's obviously important to remember is if someone doesn't have range of 2, someone like Camille, if you're thinking of that, he can only do extra range of 1. Well, then you get kind of hit or miss what you can potentially use here, depending on where Black Rosalina is. That if she maintains herself on this second lane, you may not always reach her, but that's usually not the case. She almost always will go that way because the nature of aggro is to move a little more diagonally, right? So, what we need to really consider is redefining how we think about missile users. Now, Fred in the past was like a barrage bot. We would spam this ability with bells all day. I'm telling you, that's never going to come back. It's done. It was like cool for a map, and it was super potent because you could have them circle jerk each other with a bunch of missile modifiers up, and people couldn't traverse very quickly. And I'm telling you, the missile resist is too large in this game. The defense stats are too high in this game. The AP is no longer good value anymore. So what I want you to start rethinking about is some of these other utility-oriented abilities. My favorites in particular, Vital Sharpshoot I think is a great one. Not only for the knockback, it's going to move Black Rosalena 1 square away, which is going to affect her potential range, which is really important. But number 2, break physical barriers. So if Black Rosalena uses her barrier turn 1, you can break that shit no problem. See you later. The second thing that I think people are really underrating is arm shot and leg shot. These two, just destructive to the highest degree possible. If you can have a Fred stand here and snipe across the valley and land an immobilize on a Black Rosalena, good night. Elena's not moving anywhere and she's doing jack shit. It's that simple. And the same thing could be said for Disable, where she's not going to be able to use any turns and she's just going to kite this way and maybe you can get a hit off or 2 before she does anything. But I think that's super important. Even blind, depending on what you are running. If you have evade units, wrong thing here. Blackout, this ability, same thing. Inflict blind. Black Rosalina is not going to hit shit on her evade units if you're running them alongside her. I do say, just as a side note, be wary of using Frederica because I do think Earth units are very popular on this map. That I think she is at a disadvantage where you're not going to find water units. You're just not. I haven't seen any yet. I doubt we're going to see them. So to that side note, I personally prefer Corwell and Summer Lilith. Just personally, I know not everyone has them built, but I'm telling you, like elementally, Fred's not in the best spot possible. Particularly because she is way squishier than like both of them into some of these things. So what I want to talk about next, though, is if you were to say put Black Rosalina in slot 3, we'll just like swap that around. This does change things, but not to the degree you still might expect. Here's the thing with Black Rosalina. So we're going to look at her abilities for a moment here. Now, most of these abilities, we'll look at Devastation here, Break Barrier. It's got a range of 1, 2, 3, 4, upwards of 5 with the AoE range. But the thing is, the AoE height can only hit upwards of 1 height up. We'll see why that matters in a second. So you're, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, upwards of 5, right? And she has no way to extend her range. That's not a thing. Same thing can be said for Black Rose's Hex, which decreases Spirit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Upwards of 5 spots, it's got a height of 2. Okay? So if you go back to this map, and if you have Black Rosalina here, and you imagine, turn 1, she's going to, 1, 2, 3. So she's going to be standing on a height of 2. And so if you figure, she can reach upwards of 5 squares away. Now, this is where the height comes to be really important. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's and 5 she can technically hit right there. She will not hit right there or right there from this spot. The reason why is there is a height difference of 2. And that AoE height on that ability is only height difference of 1. So that's what I mean. So even though she can technically hit, and she can hit there, she can hit all of these zeros as well, there is like a safe zone of range height here that she will not be able to hit. If you have a tank that's going down onto the 0 height stuff here, and Black Rosalina is on this height too, same thing. She can still hit them. So yes, Black Rosalina slot 3, she can do some funky things that she may not otherwise be able to do. That being said, anyone standing right here is still completely safe. And although Black Rosalina will be slightly out of the range, it's like not crazy so. Because if you have a true missile user, they'll be able to still hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like, the range still extends way the hell over. And so, like I was mentioning, we'll go back to the original scenario here, Black Rosalina. I'll put someone else here. When she's on this area, the worst she can do down here... I'm sorry, let me redo that. The worst that she can do down here in this shaded area is arithmetician skills. And quite honestly, she's pretty blind unless she has her card, which even then it's like a 30% hit rate. It's still pretty low for evade units. So this whole map, you want to just beat the shit out of Black Rosalinas that are anywhere over here. There's no reason for me that why we should be in a missile meta and you can't take advantage of that over there. It is genuinely, as I mentioned, you got to rethink how you use some of these abilities. Now, that also being said, there is one thing to keep in mind, which isn't necessarily the greatest thing ever. There is some wonky AI stuff that when you go range 2 instead of range 1 for a passive, there are some abilities that I want my people to use. For instance, I've been using Summer Lilith. She will inconsistently use bells. There will be some times where she'll just decide to regular attack instead, which drives me up a wall. Bro, please use your cooldowns instead of, doing a regular attack. And that's because you enable that range of 2. So there is some decision making, and this is where some of the testing comes in, because again, let's assume, Fred's standing right here, and she only has the extra range of 1. Well, that means anything ranges 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're going to have them standing on this edge. But, as I mentioned before, that's actually pretty likely. Most of these enemies will kite along the edge this way, so that's not unheard of. So range 2 isn't strictly necessary. It's genuinely not. You can really get away with range 1. It's just a question of, how often will their AI opt to regular attack instead of using one of their cooldowns instead. So that's where the testing comes in. But hopefully that was insightful. Good luck with your testing. And that's it. See you guys.